When we use pronouns, we want to be very clear about our antecedents, our number agreement, and then gender of the pronoun itself. In terms of antecedents, clarity is very important. This was a sentence similar to one that I read in some of the essays. They said that they had never met them before they arrived. In that case, I have no idea who they is, and there are two sets of people in that sentence, I think. So we have one set of theys and another set of thems, but they could perhaps cross over and it's unclear which they is doing what. So it may be helpful to revise the sentence to eliminate some of the pronouns in that case, or to replace one of the pronouns with an actual noun. You always simply want to be as clear as possible. When you use pronouns, you also have to be aware of number agreement. In English, we don't have a neutral singular word that refers to people. We have he, she, it, and then we have the plural they, their, and them. So if you say the student put their feet on the table and one should know better, you have a lot of confusion in this sentence. Oftentimes, people will use the word one as a pronoun in order to avoid the gender distinction of the student or the noun, whatever that case is. And it is acceptable now in APA to use a plural pronoun, their, to eliminate the potential gendered use of he or she. But it might be better and more clear if it's appropriate to say the students put their feet on the table and they should know better. But in this sentence, you can see the confusion of the writer, not knowing which way to go, not knowing which pronoun exactly to use. So if you use a particular kind of pronoun, you want to commit to it and stick with it as best you can. One is a more distanced pronoun and sometimes more stilted, especially if you use it a lot. Gendered pronouns themselves are not a problem, and they are helpful to us. But I read a book about babies when I was pregnant, and in that book, the pronouns shifted in every paragraph. It was very weird. The baby will make his needs known. And then in the next paragraph, the baby will cry when she is hungry, and those kinds of things. And they were trying to be fair in their representation that babies can have different sexes, and that's great. But sometimes you can be biased in the way that you use pronouns that are gendered. So if you always give the male pronoun or if you always give the female pronoun, particularly to positions of importance, it may cause some of your readers to disengage with your writing. So if you can, use a neutral pronoun or use a plural pronoun, or maybe try not to use the pronoun as much as you can. So thinking about the gender and your audience and making good decisions, this often will come in revision, so we don't have to worry about it too much, but it is something to be aware of. And then lastly, we're going to talk about questionable pronouns. Questionable pronouns are pronouns that I encourage you not to use simply because of the way they compromise your argument. So if you use the plural inclusive we understand the data provide a clear path forward. You are collecting your readership in with you, assuming that they are on your side and that you have convinced them fully. That is a little sloppy in terms of analysis and in terms of argumentation, because it just assumes that you've done your job. And it is oftentimes termed the royal we, assuming that you have a collective group of people who are with you and who are on your side. So it's better just to say, I understand the data. And that's okay because you're speaking genuinely when you use the first person. And I know we've been told maybe not to use the first person, and you do want to avoid first person meta discourse. Like, I was reading this and I saw. We don't need that kind of stuff, but if you are thinking about how to make a case and you need to put yourself in that particular sentence, it's more genuine to say, I understand, than to speak for your readers. And similarly, using the second person you. When you read the data, you see a clear path forward. That assumes and puts the onus of responsibility onto the reader, and you don't necessarily want to do that. It is intrusive and sometimes assumes things that we don't really get to assume because we haven't done that work and we can't have a vision from the perspective of the reader. And so we want to make sure that we're not doing that. Those are just a few things about pronouns, some things to consider as we move forward into our Essay 2 and the writing of our next draft.